Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of IGEL Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I'm super excited today because I get to kind of flip the script on one of my hosts today, and I'm super excited about that. But before I go there, I've got Chris Feeney from IGEL with me as usual. Chris is my cohort in crime here. He's a local sales engineer for IGEL, and is really sharp on these technologies. Chris, how's it going? How was your holiday?
It was good. A little downtime was always nice there near the end of the year. Tried not to sit in front of the computer. I did end up reconstituting my office. I got a monitor stand similar to I think what you have in your office there, and raised my monitors off my desk. And unbelievable how much desk space you have now.
Oh yeah,
So
that and just the fact that you actually feel like you got a little bit of a workout at the end of the day.
that's right. These things are not. They're heavier than you think, but
Well, I first did that and I was tired at the end of the day, and now I don't even notice that I've been standing up all day and moving around all day. So I guess it's worked.
yeah, it's I keep thinking of other ways of reconstituting my workspace, but I wanted a fresh start heading into 2021, and my kids think I work at like Northcom or some kind of central command or whatever.
Well, I can
I'll,
only imagine. I bet your office is pretty well put together. You're a really well put together guy, and I mean that in a compliment, by the way.
well, I appreciate that. What you can't see is off to the right, the piles of things that I have yet to get to. So we'll just keep those off camera for now.
Yeah, I got a pile of cardboard boxes over here in the corner that I keep for myself. Have to go somewhere, and they just stay there. I don't know why. Nobody takes them out for me. I don't know why.
That's right.
All right, so we have with us Mr. Doug Brown, infamous for his DABCC podcast and website that he has and has been going for, I don't know, Doug, you can tell us, but lots and lots of years. That's how, between you and Brian Madden, that's how I got my start, was listening to you guys and learning from you guys. Happy to have you, Doug.
Hey, well, thank you so much. This is a long time coming. You and I have talked about doing a podcast together for a long time, and I don't think we ever did. So I'm looking forward to this. It's always fun to talk with you, Andy. And Chris is a joy, too.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of stuff. We'll try to keep on script here. I almost guarantee you it will not happen, and that's okay, because I think there's the human element that I think people tune in for just as much, and that's part of what we're going to talk about here with the community that you've really been instrumental in growing around in the IGEL space, or the EUC space in general. I think it's more than IGEL, to be honest with you. But before I go there, I had a phone call this morning from a really, really good customer that I work with personally a lot. And they asked me via text and then via phone calls. I picked up the phone and called them right after that. If the endpoint matters in an EUC solution, whether we're talking web apps or whether we're talking VDI or whether we're talking published, x86 apps, digital workspaces, what have you. And I just want to use one of these early podcasts to address that topic. It absolutely matters, and I'll turn it over to you guys to tell the listeners why the endpoint performance ability and manageability and operating system integration and app integration, why does that matter?
Doug, seniority first, so I'm going to let you take that, and then I'll follow
Well,
up.
I was gonna let you do it since you're the engineer. I'm just a community guy, but I mean, I think the endpoint definitely matters. At the end of the day, the endpoint is the touch to the user, right? And it's all about the user at the end of the day. So, what the user uses should be easy. It should work. It should be, I've always said, within our world of being techies, we have a bunch of benchmarks, IOPS and, megahertz and what have you, right? And but the end users have one too. It has nothing to do with anything we care about. They expect their machine at work to be faster and better than their machine at home because we're experts, right? Or they think we are. And but yet we don't always deliver that. Maybe they have something really needed or whatever. We don't always deliver that. We get, we lock them down. We do all these bad things and or potentially bad things, I guess. So I think that it totally matters. It needs to be secure. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to provide them what they need when they need it, and that's it, right? They don't care about anything other than, I woke up this morning and I have to make this presentation, or I woke up this morning and I have to write this document. They don't say, I woke up this morning, I need to use Word, or I need to use my Cisco core routers. They don't care about that stuff. And So the endpoint is their interface into doing their job, and we need to make that as simple as possible.
So
Yeah,
Doug,
that's a great.
I love one thing you talked about just now, and the consumerization of what's happened on the home side of the equation has only made our job worse, right? They've got really fast tablets and phones and computers that have, the technology beyond what we would have even begun. I mean, I still remember, I bring it up all the time. I remember going with nervousness to my boss in 2000, asking for a server with 2 gigs of memory, thinking he was going to think I was going to be wasteful and spending way too much. Now your average home computer has 8 to 16 probably in many cases.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We lost control somewhere along the line, right? We used to be able to tell the people, some IT still does this, but we used to be able to tell the people, you get this laptop and you do this, or you get this device and you get this. Now, and rightfully so, things have switched to where they say, I want to use this computer. I want to use this, I need my iPads. I want this telephone, right? And IT's there to facilitate that. I mean, when I was a little kid, my dad used to always teach me. I always go back to my father because he taught me so much about what IT is there for, right? And that hasn't changed since the beginning of the computers. It's there to facilitate that user to create, that widget, or to sell that widget, or support that widget, right? It's not there for any other reason. And yeah.
So Chris, you're going to chime in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking, as I just listened to the conversation, sort of my the last 15 plus years in the EUC space, I didn't come at it from you guys. I obviously came from Citrix and sort of the back end. What you're getting to, my cutting my teeth in that space was really software on the endpoint and learning along the way, especially in particular industries like healthcare, that the user experience absolutely matters. When they're dealing with life and death situations in some cases, and you don't want them having a bad user experience. And a lot of that came down to consistency on the endpoint. And then, of course, can you reproduce that consistency across different types of endpoints? And then enter, as Doug mentioned, somewhere along the way, that BYOD kind of experience. And it's just getting to Citrix, right? I mean, how bad can it be? How hard can it be? Well, it's not hard, but are you going to get the same consistency? And, oh, by the way, you need to dictate into that application. Well, I remember one CIO project was telling us, he said, he was dealing with those doctors coming in, those savvy doctors. And he said his approach was to set up, multiple devices out there, so they didn't really have to worry about bringing their device. They can come in, sit down, and here's a machine that had a microphone they could use to dictate, or go down the hallway and there's another one they can just get to, and plenty of devices. They were all accessing a Citrix backend in the end. And it just sort of eroded that conversation. He didn't have to worry about locking their devices down or anything. And so it absolutely does matter, especially when it comes to managing that experience. IGEL, certainly our approach is, we are somewhat device agnostic. We can install ourselves on a lot of different things. The user experience that you need will be dictated by the type of endpoint. As I mentioned at the beginning, I chose this year to kick off. I'm doing this from my my IGEL device. I'm full-time on my IGEL device, connecting remotely into my workspace. And I've tried different devices, tried different webcams, just try to see how the performance is. And, it does matter based on the types of things that I need to do. And so you have to take that into account. It's a long-winded answer to say I'm pro IGEL.
Yeah, I agree. You also have to think of costs of supporting. What does it cost to support all these devices? I took it from the end user perspective, but if you look at it from the IT perspective, they need to lower the costs. And when you're supporting tons of different devices, and you need to worry about that. How do you patch it? How do you deploy applications? How do you provide that stellar experience without spending $1 trillion? And of course, security, right? Especially in this work from home world, where the hackers are running amok now. How do we lock these devices down in a easy fashion and a secure fashion? Right?
Yeah, and not the topic of today's discussion, but I've been obviously reading a little bit more and more about this most recent SolarWinds breach. Having been in the Fed space, it's near and dear to me with IGEL because, going into their brand new, you're the shiny new object and we don't know much about you. It's very interesting to see just how sophisticated this stuff has become. And now, security is most definitely it's just, you cannot have a conversation these days without that being first and foremost these days. And so it'll be interesting to see where that plays out, but I would certainly like to maybe touch on that in future discussions, Andy, as we get going here.
I'm sure there's a security podcast around a security blog coming our way. Yeah, you kind of threw that one out there, and my brain just wanted to go down that path, and I've got to make us not.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's fine. That's why we're here to have a conversation. Now, let me just kind of recap the endpoint story from what I heard from you guys. It's the cost of the endpoint, which in a lot of cases is reusing old stuff with software. That's the IGEL. One of the amazing things about IGEL, right? Performance, the ability just to keep up with things like the frame rate. That low-end Raspberry Pi probably isn't going to keep up with the frame rate in a lot of cases if you're doing anything beyond the basics. Peripheral, like Chris mentioned with the webcams and other things, be able to peripheral support. Manageability at the endpoint, or more importantly, centralized management is a huge piece of this, which is where IGEL, kind of leads the way. Security at the endpoint, security along the way, security on the back end, and then cost and time around management. Those were the things I heard, and I'm sure we could go on and on about those things. And like Doug pointed out, at the end of the day, there's only one tool that matters in the measurement of that, and that's the user experience and them being happy with what you've provided to them as their IT department.
I think that's really key. I'm just going to say, it's that user experience. All the stuff behind it that you just mentioned does matter, and it's extremely important. But it's, what am I delivering to that user? Are they, and of course, what type of user is it? And just making them never really think that, today I get to fire up my IGEL device or whatever. It's just I'm getting to my workspace, and it's just consistent every single time.
I don't know if you guys noticed. I just did something really silly. I took a picture of the screen with my phone. That'll be part of what I post when the time comes.
Well, I'm certainly honored because, I happened to see somebody post. I guess he was the most recent Citrix SE of the year, and he's wearing that jacket that you guys pass around.
Yeah.
And on the left side had Doug Brown #1. At the bottom had Andy Whiteside. I'm like, man, I'm going to be on the podcast with these rock stars. I'm pretty honored. So.
Did they have that jacket when you were there, Andy?
I think it was on year 2 or 3. I think it's like a 35 or 36 short or something, and I wear a 42 long. It was interesting.
Yeah. I was curious about that. What they did with like big people and tall people, and it's sort of like for one size does not fit all in that kit. It's the other thing about that jacket's interesting is they didn't have it around when I was there. I actually won in 2002. Bob Schaefer, if you guys know Bob Schaefer, Andy, you should. He runs escalation or support over at Citrix, and he was an SE with me. He won in 2003, and then Joe Baker was 2004. So they actually goofed up, and they totally left good old Bob Schaefer off the jacket. So. That's, poor guy. Such a good guy, too.
I mean, not that we're in it for the notoriety, but come on, you might as well take it while you can get it.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, to me, that's almost that's almost 20 years. So
it felt very master-esque, if you will. This jacket.
Yeah, exactly.
Around.
Yeah,
I would like to see him throw a tiny jacket on one of those guys. Something tells me they custom fit those. They got a good closet full of assortments on that one.
Absolutely.
The Masters has a few dollars.
Yeah.
So does Citrix.
They're not shy of money. That old Southern cash there. All
right, so let's try to get through the topic here of talking about the community that Doug has been a big part of. Let me start by saying this. One, Doug, I do want you to go back and if possible, succinctly talk about your story and how DABC came about and how you built a community there. I don't know if you guys have seen, I did a LinkedIn post not too long ago where I said, the way to build a business is build a community, then service that community. I believe that. I've learned that from watching you guys. That's a true story. I did want to highlight real quick though that IGEL as a company, I've said to people in the past recently that if I didn't have my own company, I'd go work for IGEL, thin client company, and they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. I mentioned this on the intro podcast. I've always wanted to be a Linux guy, and I think what you guys are doing are cool. I like the marketing piece of it, and I like the community side of what's become around IGEL. So, Doug, if I have to be totally honest, you took my job, right? My plan was to do this and then go do what now you're doing. So I'm a little envious, to be honest with you. Now you get to go live in Germany. You get to.
We could switch. You can come work at
Doug
IGEL.
wants to come back to Sarasota.
To the ground. I'll take over.
I'm moving to Sarasota, Doug.
Yesterday
I have an empty apartment there.
All right, but Doug, tell us about your first time building a fantastic community around DABCC. We only got about 45 minutes left or 40 minutes left, so work within 10 minutes.
Well, I won't talk about DABCC for that long, of course. DABCC is an interesting thing. It started off, I built that thing January 12th. Wow, I got to check it out. It'll be 23 years, 22 years. I built it January 1st, 1999. And the reason I remember that date is, I don't know, because I know dates well, I guess. But it was the day I got DSL at my house. And at that time, I was doing my NT4 MCSE or adding on to, I forget. And but I was studying for I wanted to do the MCSC plus I or the NCP plus I, and learn IIS. So I thought, well, you know what? The best way to learn is stand up a website. So I built a website and I called it DABCC for Douglas Brown Computer Company. And I was like, what am I going to put on this thing? Well, back in those days, you had a bag that you carried around with you as an engineer. Andy, because you might remember that, right? You had that bag, and inside was all your TechNet CDs, all your Novell uninstalled discs.
I still have that bag.
All these, yeah, but you have your TechNet CDs.
Mine.
They probably don't work.
I've got a cube here in my little, try to just pull it out and pull out whatever cable I need whenever I need it.
Mine's a Crown Royal.
Yeah, you had the cable.
There's a story behind that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, you had this bag and you're constantly going through that. And the thing was, at the consulting company I worked for, all the guys would be like, hey, Doug, you have that Novell uninstalled disk? And I'm like, yeah, here you go. And then I'd be on site, I didn't have one. So, hey, Doug, you have this CD? Okay, yeah. So I thought, well, I'll just stick this stuff up on the website, right? And then I can download it wherever I need it, instead of going to BBS or wherever the heck you got it in those days. And so that's what I did. And I built this thing for the idea of basically me having the resources I needed and the guys I worked with having the resources they needed. Also to sort of share the stuff I was doing. I was doing a lot of Citrix work. So in return, I bit the side of my tongue this morning. So if I sound blah, 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 that's why. I had a little bit of pain too. It's never fun.
You stopped and explained that because there's no telling what we were thinking.
So anyway, so I was doing a lot of Citrix work and I started putting Citrix links up there. I started putting, writing a little bit about what I was doing, right? Back in those days, there was nothing out there. The Citrix website was very vague. You had something called the Thin List, which was the listserv, a bunch of great guys on there, asking questions and what have you. So to me, DABCC was sort of the front end to the Thin List and the front end for that stuff. That Brian wasn't around yet. It was just a very simple day. You had Greenberg, myself, Chris Mack, all these great guys, man. Chris Mack, was it? I'm missing his name. He's an Australian guy. Yeah, Joe Shunk. Roy Takeshi. A bunch of the Rick Dillinger. The Citrix SEs and stuff. But so that's how DABCC started. It sort of grew because there weren't any Citrix resources, so people started going to that. The Citrix SE started promoting it because it was something. And then I got hired by Citrix in 2000, middle of 2001. Well, they gave me a soapbox, right? So I'm at iForum and Summit, and people saw me up on stage. 1, 2, 3, 400, right? Grew from there and there and there. And that's sort of where it started. I didn't set out to build a Citrix website. I didn't set out to create a community. I don't think I created a community. I think the community created itself. I didn't set up for anything. It was just a byproduct of what I did for a job.
I think that's interesting. You say you didn't create one, and truth is you probably didn't, but you fostered it. That's really what you did.
I think a lot of people did, though. A lot of people did.
Right.
You bet.
And that's what you're doing. You're fostering a group of people that have similar interests that will come together if you give them a path to do so.
This is interesting. I was listening to Doug and Andy. Doug, you might have shared this with me, I think, recently, but looking at like somebody that gives away knowledge rather than holds it by themselves. I'm going to hold these little, and keep coming to me, and I'll hand it out if I feel like it, rather than just I'm going to share it. And then, the lesson there, I think, is certainly, as you begin to share more, I mean, it just, people naturally understand that and gravitate towards that and realize that, that there's power behind that. And obviously it opens up opportunities to share more. And that's what I've seen in the communities that I've been a part of, is that, you realize that, especially in SE, I mean, how many times you've been out there on your own and you're sitting there struggling, and then you reach out to a community, you have no idea where your friends are at that point in time. Somebody that day or that week ran into the same issue and is able to share immediately what they did, and problem solved, you're good to go. And that I think just develops community so much, and you just feel like, you've got this army behind you helping you succeed. And that's what I love about the power of the community as well.
Yeah, I think there's two things that my response to what you said, and you're exactly 100% correct. In the old days, we used to think knowledge is power. I have all this knowledge. You're going to hire me because I have this, and I'm the smart guy in the room. Look at me, how cool I am. Whoopee. You're only as smart as your resources. Blah 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 blah. I could care less about those people that hold on to knowledge. Knowledge is not power. Power comes from dispersing knowledge. My career was built on that. It wasn't on purpose. It was just a byproduct of people helping me and me helping them, right? Madden was a great example of this, right? Brian's a smart guy, very smart guy. He became wildly successful from sharing what he knows, right? And you can go down down the list of these guys that are, well-known people within the Citrix world, VM world, Microsoft world, what have you. They're not smarter than everybody. They're just the people that shared it, right? The other thing is at IGEL, for example, and this is what we argued with Citrix, because in the Citrix days, it was interesting. There was no such thing as community. There was no such thing as blogs. The word blog hadn't been invented yet, literally. So we actually would get in trouble for sharing some of this knowledge. They said, no, we charge for that. And our argument was, no, you don't. You charge for licenses. If people don't buy your licenses, then you can't charge for support or advanced services or anything, right? You sell licenses. You don't say, oh, well, you bought our product. Oh, you want to figure out how to use it? Well, pay us some more money. They're going to go find someplace else to go. That's just a bad business model, and it's a bad behavior, right? So at the end of the day, knowledge is not power. Power is from dispersing of knowledge. And realize what you do. We in the software world, we sell licenses. Everything else is a subset. You buy support because you want 24/7. You want to be able to know that when you do have a real problem, you can get somebody on the phone, or you can get a quick answer from an expert. You get advanced services because that guy comes in and consults with you, right? Consulting is different than break fix. You know what I mean? Consulting is, hey, what's your problem? Let's discuss this. Let's create a solution for you. Giving someone knowledge is not advanced services. That's just, yeah. So that's sort of my take on it. I can be sort of a bigot about that because I lived it.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and that's been helpful to see you guys live it. And, not to go into a lot of detail here on this one, but there's a community that's evolved in the last couple of years where the business is the community. The community doesn't, work within a business or generate a business. It is the business. And I've had to recently step away from that one because it just doesn't work. Every action is to determine whether it's profitable or not the act of giving and sharing and serving the community. It's caused me some recent heartburn to get away from a group that was clearly in it for the money, in disguise of in it for the community.
Yeah. I think I was going to just say my dad, I remember him, we were talking, but he used to take care of your customer and he'll take care of you. underline who is your customer, right? I mean, you take care of the community, take care of your friends, take care of obviously the folks that paid you for those licenses, for example, and they'll return it. I mean, they'll come back because they know you care, and that really comes.
Yeah.
That's just keeping it simple,
Yeah, well said. I think of goals and results. So, the goal is to create, really great content, to write the best book, to create the best videos, to share the most knowledge, what have you. Result is money. The result is, a good job. The result is, a lot of vacation, whatever, right? Here's the result, and if your goal is the result, then you're misguided, and you'll probably achieve it, but I don't have a lot of respect for it, and you'll be found out eventually too.
Well, and part of that's just being, that's kind of what a lot of IT guys are. We're not necessarily in it for the money. We have to be reflective of the money and make sure it's there, right? We got to make a living. We got to feed our families.
Sure.
At the same time, I use the quote from Forrest Gump in the movie. I'd cut that grass for free. I literally would cut the grass for free. It's what I enjoy doing. But I got to somehow make a living.
Well, this is the problem with engineers is, we'd give it all away for free if we could, right? That's why you never ask an engineer, or engineers should never talk or pricing, because I don't know what it costs, I don't pay for it,
No, worse than that. We'd
give it all away for free if we could.
Our answer is, I don't know what it costs, but it costs way too much. It only cost a couple pennies to make it. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just let all the genie out.
It's just paper.
I've never done that before.
That's actually very... You have to. That's when I joined Citrix. I'll never forget it. It's a lesson that I'll never forget, and it's one I see people make mistakes all the time with. I joined Citrix, and it was my first day, and they showed me the latest. They showed me MetaFrame FR1 to show you how long ago I joined Citrix, and MetaFrame XP10 FR1. And the next day, my boss, Arlo, picks me up, and he's driving me down to the EBC in San Mateo. And he looks at me, he's like, hey, well, what was your first day like? I was like, man, I loved it. He's like, oh, what did you love about it? I said, well, I got to see what was new. I was like, from the outside, you never get to see the roadmap. Back then, you didn't share roadmaps at all, right? You never had betas. There was never anything, tech previews. None of that stuff was around, right? So I was like, wow, this is so cool. He said, oh, did you see, what did you like? And I said, I really love that CDW or CWC, the Citrix Web Console. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was a website that allowed you to reset connections and things like that. Nowadays, it makes sense. Back then, anyway. And he said, oh, really? You like that? I was like, yeah. And he goes, why? And I was like, oh, man, I can see giving it to help desk. I was like, it'd be great. You don't have to give him the MF admin. Everything's great. He's like, oh, really? He goes, what do you think it took to develop? And I was like, I don't know, man. I could write that in a weekend. He goes, oh, wow, that's pretty impressive. I was like, I wouldn't be solid, but I could do it, And he goes, well, it didn't take him a weekend. He goes, how many people do you think developed that? And I was like, I don't know, 1, 2. He goes, let's say 2 at minimum, probably more. He goes, what do you think that took to, we have to test it, right? And I was like, yeah. He goes, what do you think it took to test it? How much time? He goes, how many people? He goes, and then he goes, and what do you think it cost? He goes, remember, you got 2-3 developers, you got the Q&A. He goes, hey, you can only have so many features per release. He goes, what do you think dropped off the plate? He goes, and then he goes down this and he's like, what do you think it costs? I was like, oh, 100 to 200,000, for that one little feature. And then he goes, was it a good feature? I was like, no, it's a horrible feature. He goes, correct. And you have to look at that complete cycle. What something actually takes. So when an engineer says, to me, well, there's a misspelling in the config file. Okay, who cares? Or it says infuse in the config files. Yeah, who cares? You know what that takes to fix that? And what are we going to not have? You know what I mean? Right. So building software there's a lot more to it than just, than meets the eye.
There is. And when you run a company like I do, there's lots of decisions that the average person, specifically engineers who already know everything, they don't know. They don't know that if I move money around at the end of the year to pay less taxes, then I have to justify to the bank why I deserve to keep my credit line kind of stuff. They just don't know that. And, I didn't know that. Well, I found out the hard way. You got to pay a lot of people to keep the train going. And even then you're lucky if it maintains itself. But so Doug.
Yeah. And if you have, And with a bench too, if you maybe the guys aren't busy, you still have to pay them,
Oh yeah.
right? And you get the profits, but you also take the losses.
So
And running a business is a challenge. It's to be
2020 has been
respected.
interesting, right? I'd say our consultants have been billable about 40% of the time. We expected to be maxed out in 2020 because of the way everything was going. COVID hit, and we're 50% of the time. I can't just let people go. I've got to keep them around. I got to keep them paid. I got to keep their family fed. And anyway, we can go into all that.
Insurance. To run a business is not all that in a bag of chips.
Well, what we're really tying that back to is the fact that you built a community. I've built XenTegra's internal employee community as well as customer and partner community. It's not all that dissimilar. There's a lot that goes into building and maintaining a foundation and keeping the herd together. My son and I are reading books about the Wild Wild West at night before he goes to bed, or the Wild West, not the Wild Wild West. That's something else. And we're talking about how to keep the cattle together. There's a lot that goes into keeping a bunch of cattle from going crazy and stampeding. I never knew. I had no idea. I thought they just rode around and lassoed horns every so often for the sake of it. I didn't know they actually had to, cut off a stampede and run them in circles until they ran into each other and stopped running. I didn't realize that's how it worked. And sometimes I feel like maybe that's what I do as a cowboy. Anyway, so
you heard cats.
Yeah. GABCC was community number 1 that you built, very successful there. And then Jed Ayers and the team at IGEL, I assume this was part of Jed's idea, but they decided that they needed to build a community as well. And they somehow tap you on the shoulder, and you tap them on the shoulder. It was mutual. I don't know. But somehow this IGEL community came together. And I want you to talk about the beginning of that a little bit. And then I want you to jump into the blog from September and as you talk through it, update it. But let's make sure we highlight the things you highlighted in the blog about the successes and what you guys have done.
Sure. So I ended up IGEL on a complete fluke. So they did not come after me, and I did not come after them. I was doing a podcast, just like we are today. And I was living in this old flat in Berlin here with horrible internet. And we had a bunch of static on the line. And so I tried to clear it. We reset it. Finally, I told Jed, I said, I don't want to waste your time. You're a busy man. Let's reschedule. It's not working today. And he said, why don't you give me a call and I'll tell you the off-the-record story, what I'm trying to do over here at IGEL. So I called him up and, we're chatting. And I said, Jed, I know what they do. I know what you do. I know what you do. I was like, I love IGEL. It's great technology, And he goes, Doug, the problem is, he goes, you know this. Andy knows this. Chris knows this. Brian knows this. What have you. But the world doesn't. And, we're having some fun. I said, well, hire me, man. I'll tell the world. And it was totally a flippant comment. And it was sort of maybe a little bit of arrogance. I don't know. But it was just a joke, right? And he said, oh, you want to come work with us? I was like, I don't know, And he said, oh, come on, man. And so I started chatting with him. And being in Berlin, he said, in a week or a couple weeks, I'm going to be in Bremen. Come up and visit us. So I went up and visited him and Heiko, the CEO before Jed and our chairman and founder of IGEL. And we sat down and chatted, and they're like, showed me around IGEL, the offices, and said, hey, what do you want to do at IGEL? And I said, well, I can be an evangelist, we can go to the conferences, speak about you and things like that. I was like, but what I really want to do is build a community. He said, well, what's a community? And Jed sort of got a Heiko, I don't think he really understood at first, or definitely when I said it. But then I explained it. I said, what we want to do is we want to create something for the customers and for the partners. I was like, marketing is great. It rains from the top down. It's really nice to CIOs and IT managers and guys with budgets. But the people doing the work, the guys that are really the influencers, we ignore them. Let's make some place for them. Let's make them, let's empower them. Let's give them the tools and the knowledge and the love that they need, right? And they'll take us places we can only imagine. Yep. Jed got it. Heiko at that point was like, yeah, we want this. They, okay, cool. And so they hired me. My main job was global technology evangelist. I went around the globe and talked about IGEL, which I really love to do. But in the spare time, I started to build this IGEL community. And at first how do you build a community? What do you do? We tried sort of email. That doesn't work. There's no feedback loop. But we tried a simple website. Do you really want to join a new website? No. Shane Kleinfeld kept bugging me about you
Hey, Chris, you still there?
I'm hearing him. I think he's trying to
And
say
everything it was great.
Hey, Doug, we lost the last 10 seconds. I think you're about to say
Yeah,
using Slack.
Yeah, you didn't.
Start over from there.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
you guys ended up on Slack, right? That's where you built the
Yeah,
community?
yeah. So I'll start it. So I listened to Shane and I went over to slack.com and started up a workspace. And then comes to sort of the second and third ingredients of building a community from what I found was one or two. One is the right platform. We found that Slack was the right platform for us. Two was finding internal champions. I found some great guys within IGEL that wanted to help, wanted to answer questions, wanted to chat, wanted to be community members, wanted to be part of the conversation.
So,
And then
Doug,
three is good
that
partners and customers.
Are you saying it's natural human desire to be part of a community? Absolutely,
No.
right?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that techies are reclusive people.
But they still want to be part of something while being reclusive at the same time, right? Everybody wants to be part of something, but maybe not stick their neck out.
I think that's right. I think our number one community member inside IGEL community is an employee, Sebastian, one of our great guys, and he joined just to see what the hubbub was about. And he wasn't a community guy. He was an engineer. He wanted to be an engineer. Didn't like the idea of social networks or any of this stuff. And what he found was exactly what I think you're after is, or what you're trying to say, is he found a bunch of techies sitting around a bar talking about tech.
Yep.
And he loved it. Because that's what we want. We want to nerd out with each other. Right.
Well, I think it's a classic scenario too, because I've watched, I've been almost 3 years now here at IGEL, and I've seen, take somebody like Sebastian, for example, where he, skeptical at first and then begins to realize what's there and then begins to share. And now he's doing, webinars on hardening ICG and sharing more knowledge, right? And I'm looking at him like, that's a great set of series, right? And we have our other learning centers over here on the KB or the Academy, but here's a great place where you can also consume content because people are willing to share, not hold that information in. And it's been great to see that take place. And he's one of many. I'll say that.
Yeah, he's one of many. And it's really great. What's really interesting to see when he goes, I mean, this guy does 4,500, 5,000 posts a year, which is ridiculous. And just ridiculous. So when he goes on vacation, I'm always a little bit worried. Is there going to be someone there to answer questions and things? And when he does, everyone still gets their questions answered. Someone else picks up. And what else is is also happening within the community, something really fascinating, is that people are now trying to answer question quicker than Sebastian does. They usually don't win, but when they do, they gloat about it because they're like, "Yes, I beat Sebastian to the question or to the answer." That's pretty neat.
Well, I think that's interesting too. I mean, David Prose, who I'll call out here, he's over here in the U.S. I think he was your IGEL Community Member of the Year, at least for North America. And, I know David. I like David. He's a customer of ours. He's awesome to be on the phone with and have a conversation with. Watching him be really active in that community is fun and good to see, but a little bit surprising because David's not somebody who flaunts his knowledge, but in a community, man, he shines like a champ.
David's a very interesting guy. If you talk to him, like in a social setting, he's nice and quiet and reserved and polite, and he lets the conversation unfold. You get him into the community, he's posting funny gifs and making jokes and helping everybody, and he found his place where he feels comfortable and is happy. He's a great example. Sebastian's a great example of the internal. There's so many of them internally though. And David is a great example of an external guy that these are the people you dream about finding. You know what I mean? They find you though.
Yeah, I'll put in a quick plug for my buddy Ron Nair, who he coming up. I guess he's been a year, but tremendous skill set, Linux-wise, Unix programming, and he picked up and learned a lot just from the community itself, the Slack site, and then has begun to contribute greatly to that and sharing the knowledge, both in some of the courses we've been putting into Academy. so formalized training type thing, but also sort of the informal type stuff that's available on the community site. So it's, sharing in both places just continues that community, just keeps you up to speed, and getting away from that, I think, is certainly to your detriment.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned in the article we wrote back in September about 1,000 days, and I think we're at 1,100 now, more, is we created what IGEL OS has the ability to do what's called a custom partition. So basically install applications on a lockdown environment, which sort of goes against what I just said. And Ron Nair, being a great programmer, someone who really wants to share, we built a very simple store, myself and Sebastian, and he took that and made it, 80 billion times better. He's another example of, and this is what we sort of wanted. Was my goal with the store was, hey, hopefully someone much smarter than me will come around and make this thing better. And that's what community does. And you look at Linux itself, right? Linux was, hey, here's this base operating system, and all these other people jumped on it and made it bigger than the sum of its parts. And that right there is community, right?
Yeah.
I think the community gives people who are paid to know a lot, and in some cases are supposed to know it all, a place to go talk to other people where they can let their guard down and not have to know more than everybody else in the room, because they're in the room with other peers, and that gives them a place to feel included, a place to feel able to express themselves, and a place where they can truly learn from others without feeling threatened. Is that one way?
Yeah, and not show off, but and showcase their talents. That's probably the best way. Hey, I know this. I can help you. And nerds want to do that. That's when I was an engineer, I wanted to talk about what I loved. I still do, right? And this is the place where they can do it.
Yeah. I'm kind of laughing because I have situations where with my son and his friends where we're in a group and he'll do something really nerdy. We're playing domino Mexican train the other night, and he and his girlfriend start making gorilla noises, and I'm just kind of shaking my head like, oh my God. And then every other kid in their group start making the same noise. Like, okay, I guess it's okay. We're gonna make gorilla noises every time we get a good play.
How old's your boy?
Well, he's 19, so there you go.
19 making gorilla noises. I love
That's right.
That's great.
Yep.
Awesome.
But it's finding your group, right, where you feel comfortable acting like you. That's where community starts. Yeah,
and for the techie piece, I mean, I think I'll speak for myself, but I'll share my opinion. I think we're all a little bit nerdy, reclusive type of people. We didn't fit in the bigger, in the popular people or the whatever. We had our little things. We like these toys, especially the older ones that grew up when computers weren't cool, right? Now we get to hang out with the guys we love, and I don't care if you like sewing. When you find those other people that love to sew, you just, it's great, man. Absolutely love it. I love going to the IGEL community every single day and hanging out. I really do.
Doug, it's got to be somewhat good for your health, but bad for your personal, your socialization, I think, or maybe your psyche, not having the conferences. I know it is for me. This is the time of year we're supposed to go hang out and have drinks at the bar. One of my very first conversations with you is you explaining to me, maybe up in New York, that the idea, like, I just assume you were a party animal all the time. You ran around and
God, no.
social all the time. You're like, no, I just do this with this group of people. I don't do it all the time. Like, oh, okay. I thought that was interesting.
I'm a very interesting people. My wife realized this. She got to know me before she was my wife, obviously. But I won't go into a bar by myself. I'll stand outside and wait for my friends, and then I'll go in. Yeah. Going to my kids' school scared the crap out of me. I get anxiety like crazy. But in the Citrix world, we all know each other, and I've been in it since the 90s. So, it's, you feel at home and you can be yourself and have fun. It's nice.
So guys, I've only got a few more minutes and I got to jump to my next meeting, but let's make sure we go through the bullets that you guys listed on the blog here and the things you've done so that people that are listening to this get more insight to what's available for them beyond just the socialization of the community. Your first bullet here talks about building a library of how-to guides. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but anything you want to highlight there?
No, I mean, if you want to learn about IGEL, we'll walk you. I wrote the guide that will take you screenshot by screenshot through the entire product from the time you download it until the time you have it up and running. From there, you need to learn more, but we'll get you up and running. Carl Webster said it took him under an hour to follow the guide and get the whole thing done. So really simple.
Oh, that's awesome. And then the second bullet goes back to the custom partitions. I'll try to explain real quick in more detail what that is. So you guys have a Linux operating system kind of made up of read-only and managed like a layer cake kind of thing. But if somebody needs a Linux application to be part of that operating system, they can create their own custom layer or get help from the community, or potentially even just download it from the community and then lay that into their environment. And now they've got that Linux application in as part of their IGEL operating system. That's custom partitions, right? What else would you want people to know about it?
Yeah, the thing about CPs is they can be a little bit difficult, or they're definitely difficult. It's something we want to make simpler as a company, but right now they can be a little bit difficult. Our idea was to sort of to package up and create a zip file to where someone can download it. Unfortunately, we can't distribute the binaries, meaning like the Zoom client, so they can drag and drop that in there, make some changes, and off they go. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. That's where Ron Nair came in and really enhanced this. But that's the idea, to try to make it easier for someone to install a custom partition.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that. The key thing there is, taking a piece of software that's not integrated in the read-only OS and then installing it so that it more or less behaves as if it's native. And that's really key, because you have to make sure that depending on the complexity of the app, it touches on the parts of the OS and other things that it would need to work consistently. So case in point, if you have the native Teams application and you click on a meeting to launch it, you want that to, be able to bring up your browser or something like that and know that it's, I need to call up Firefox, or I need to call up the native client or whatever it is and do it that way. So
yeah, full integration.
And at some point, some of those things become part of the OS itself. There's a few examples out there. We won't go into them in detail here, but
so here's one way to kind of sum that up. If you to create a custom partition, you kind of need to know a little bit about Linux and how to install applications. But to just grab one off the community and check it into your UMS, you don't have to know any of that, right?
That's not true. I wish. Ron's made it a heck of a lot simpler, but you still need to. Ron has documented it pretty darn good, and but and we got to leave something for the engineers, right? They don't want to just drag and drop this stuff. They want to have a little bit of fun too. So there is a little bit of work that's involved in making this happen. Chris, maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, basically what, we've now have a custom partition course in the IGEL Academy, and you can kind of go through videos and step-by-step sort of what's involved in creating something like Teams or Zoom or whatever. And then the IGEL community has templates out there. As Doug, you mentioned, or we can't distribute the binaries of these apps, but we can give you the template, and then you can kind of pull it in. What Ron's done is then take it to the next level. Is here's a script that you can, if you would start basically using something like an Ubuntu or Linux OS as your build box, and his script basically goes out there, pulls down the application, maybe it's Chrome or the latest version, and then any other libraries that are going to be needed to work on IGEL, and then packages it all up. But if you want to do it manually, you can certainly go through that too, but his script can basically knock something out in 46 seconds or something. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get in and play with that at some point, because I've struggled with custom partitions. Luckily, you guys have been around to help me. I should probably leverage the community for that. All right, so the next bullet here, IGEL Community Awards. I guess that was part of what you guys demonstrated at Disrupt last year. Is there more to it than that?
The awards?
Yeah, explain what the IGEL Community Awards are.
Yeah, so just like, probably everyone knows that Microsoft MVP or CTP, and we have the same equivalent. We mentioned, David Prowse, he was Community Member of the Year, and also, so we have 3 levels, or we will have 3 levels. Today we have insiders, VIPs, and fellows. An insider is, I wouldn't say the lowest level, that makes it sound so. It's the base level, the beginner. No, beginner. It's the first level, and that is the guys that are active, the guys that are sharing. It's a bigger group. And then we have the VIPs, they're the more experts in the technology that are sharing. Then the fellows, those are the guys that have been around, for a while, really, really doing amazing stuff for a period of time. We don't have any fellows yet. We will announce the VIPs in the class and insiders class of 2021, if I can get the year right, at Disrupt this year in February.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That to me sounds like something almost a competition, if you will. I don't think that's exactly how you guys maybe look at it, but it's something to strive for. And I don't want to say bragging.
Well, it's if you're an insider or a VIP, what's neat is you get to learn about what's coming. So we have a secret announcement coming out, I think the end of next week. And we're going to be, we have a meetup. One of the other things we started doing at IGEL is monthly meetups. We're going to be talking about and sharing this secret announcement on the meetup next Thursday. And all of our insiders already know about this, right? So they get NFRs, but really what they get is inside information. And for a techie, that's what I want. I don't care about the cert. I don't care about the plaque. I care about knowing that X is coming and I got the product before you do. That's cool.
Doug, you might have said this, but inside information as well as the ability to provide feedback and input, is that part of it too?
Yeah, absolutely. Feedback and input. We do a lot of conference calls with our Zoom calls today. Hopefully in the future we'll get together. Talking, sharing, hey, we released a UMS web app, and what do you guys think of this? And they, for 45 minutes, our product managers listen to, our VIPs, our experts, tear that product down and build it back up into their liking, which is huge for us and great for them too.
Yeah, it's mutually beneficial. I'm sorry, Chris, you were going to say something?
No, I'm good. I'm trying to figure out what the announcement is. I think I know what it is, but
I think Doug just said insiders sometimes know more than the actual employees. I don't know if that's
I mentioned that as a joke. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I'll just leave it vague for the moment.
Believe it or not, we have some IGEL employees that are insiders, and they have complained that the insiders learn more than they do as employees. And our response is, Sebastian and I said, well, you should do more within the IGEL community, and you'll get that extra special attention also. So.
Certainly worthy of debate.
I'm starting to run out of time, but and I'm sorry for that. It's just my days are packed. You got the blog, of course, which is tons of value and people are contributing to. You've got the events and meetups. I think most of those are online right now, but certainly valuable online and maybe the way of the world going forward. Certainly, we're going to get back to conferences someday, and that's going to be exciting for all of us. I can't wait to go again. But that'll be certainly part of this group. And then you got things like the PowerShell module management piece. I guess, Doug, you or Chris, either one want to jump into what that is? Because I honestly don't know.
PowerShell stuff is really cool. We have a community member, Folk Highland, who's a PowerShell expert. And we have an IMI, which is our sort of API layer inputs into the IGEL UMS and our IGEL world. And if you want to write PowerShell scripts, he wrote a wrapper that allows you to write to that wrapper, and then that wrapper in return writes calls back to back to our system. And so it's really simple to use. We actually did a meetup on that in November. So highly recommend people, if you're wanting to write scripts using PowerShell, check out the PSIGEL, Falk's creation.
It's interesting to see that IGEL and the community here embracing PowerShell. When that first came about roughly 20 years ago, we were told that as a sysadmin, that was pretty much the future of shell in our industry, whether you're on a Windows or Linux platform. And it's awesome to see that around. All right, so guys, I'm kind of done here, but Doug, I do want to give you a moment just to promote. This blog was written in September. I think it says 140,000 members at the time. What's the current size of the group?
That was 140,000 messages. Yeah, we're at 5,356 members. We're growing quite fast, about average of 6 per day. And that's including weekends when we don't get anybody really. We get maybe 1 or 2 per weekend. And then we're at 186,527 messages posted. And when I talk about messages, that means public, messages in public channels, private channels, and direct messages, because we think when people are talking, back and forth privately, that's important for us too, right? That sense of community. That's things going on within our world.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Very lively place. Let's put it that way.
So congratulations to you and the IGEL team for investing in this and it working. Definitely a lot of accolades, or not accolades, maybe some accolades. I'm sure those are out there, but certainly a lot of benefit and success, and you guys should be applauded at the very least for what you guys have been able to do. I'm really envious. I kind of want the same thing to happen over here. We're doing it, through podcasts and webinars and other things, but a formal community. Yeah, I kind of like what you guys are doing. We should probably do a XenTegra version of the same thing and just kind of copy you.
I would make the joke, hire me and I'll tell the world, but I'm not leaving IGEL anytime soon. So
careful there, Doug.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm not leaving anytime soon. January is my 4-year anniversary. So I've had a great career. I've been lucky to work for great companies and be around great people. And I've had more fun in the past 4 years than I've had in 25 years of working, which is really a testament to what the folks at IGEL and in the company we have here.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, living your life and enjoying it, making a living while doing it, that's what's important. I'm glad that's happening for you.
Priceless, baby, priceless.
All right. Well, guys, with that, we'll wrap up the recording here. We'll do it again next week. Chris, who do we have next week? Do you know? Do you remember?
I think it's Dan O'Farrell. I'll have to check. But definitely we got some good folks lined up, good blogs to talk about, and we'll add more certainly as the next weeks ensue. So, Doug, always a pleasure, man.
Next time you write something, Doug, let us know. We'll have you back on. Anytime you put something out there, we want to talk to you about it.
We put on last year we created a blog on IGELcommunity.com, and we did 104 blog posts from April on. So that's 2.53 per week. So I don't think you want to see me that much.
It's the Doug Brown Show again.
We don't want that. Nobody wants that.
All right, we'll share the love.
But we definitely want you on when we get a chance to bring you on and not dominate the show by whenever we get a chance to intermingle you with the others, we definitely will. And don't be shy. We'd love having you on.
It's my pleasure, Andy. Big fan of Andy. So and all of XenTegra. So thank you so much. And Pete Downing's a real awesome dude too. So great company, great folks.
I'll let him know you said that, and that you appreciate the T-shirt.
I do appreciate the T-shirt
and the hat.
I like Pete. Pete's a great guy. The whole company, man. Okay,
send me a hat,
Pete. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.